Hi, it's Graham Wilson here from Success Factory, and I've been asked to shoot this short video to share some tips and hints and ideas about how to make the most out of our virtual meetings. And the reason being is that in a recent survey conducted with yourselves, we found these interesting facts. When asked the question, do you find virtual calls more draining than normal face-to-face meetings, 14% of us said they prefer virtual calls to face-to-face meetings. So what that means in reality is that 86% of us prefer face-to-face meetings as opposed to virtual calls. 21% of us didn't really notice the difference, so that means 79% are noticing a difference. And this concept called Zoom fatigue is a real thing. So 64%, well over half of us, are actually feeling exhausted and tired with virtual meetings. So what can we actually do about it? So what I do on this video is share with you my top tips and ideas. We have created a PDF facilitators guide that you can download around this video somewhere. There should be a link, and that will give you some further tips and hints and ideas about what you can do as a leader to make sure that your virtual meetings really do rock and actually really inspire action. The first thing to think about in terms of virtual meetings is, number one, I would say my top tip is, do I really need the meeting? And to remember that meetings, whether they're face-to-face or virtual, they really have three things that are really important and are the same. Number one is that any meeting should really inspire action. So what happens after the meeting is probably the most important thing. So begin with the end in mind when you're creating a meeting. So why am I having it? And what is it I want people to go and do after the meeting? And then think through and craft that process in order to get the results you're looking for. Think about what you want people to feel like, to go and do, and actually take action after the meeting. The second thing to remember that even though it's around technology and virtual meetings in terms of the systems we're using, it is really about people, and it is really about how we engage people, how we include people. I hear time and time again that people are in back-to-back Zoom meetings throughout the whole of their day. That can't be effective. It's like driving down a motorway in your car when you're completely exhausted and you get into the service station and you get out of the car and you suddenly feel alive again. So sitting in back-to-back Zoom meeting is not effective, it's not efficient, and it's not good for our health. Sit in a chair all day, watching videos and contributing to the meeting is not really healthy and not sustainable. So we need to really think about whether we really need these meetings, and can we not actually just create direction, give people autonomy, and then support them as required. So this whole empowerment piece, and we can get obsessed with constantly being in contact with people when do we really need to be that? And the final thing there really is to think through what is the structure and process I need. So let's have a look at some practical top tips that you can really do to be effective at running virtual meetings. I think the first thing is that the context is different. The context of working virtually means that we have to think differently. Often it's difficult to see who's working on what and the projects and tasks and what the portfolio is. So using virtual planning tools like Trello, Asana, Concept Board, Plans in Teams are vital to ensure that we're clear about what's going on and we're all aligned and there's no duplication. So visual management is really important in this context. The lack of big picture and not joining the dots can lead to misunderstanding, wasted work, and a feeling of isolation. The physical distance is different as well. We're separated by longer distances than ever before. It's more challenging to decode the messages that are going on in the conversations. And interruptions that we have no control over can come into play. I think technology is different as well. Being tech savvy around the system, understanding how it all works is really important. Broadband connection is becoming vital, isn't it? And the cultural differences come to play. Being separate means that we need to agree our cultural norms and ways of working and principles. So setting up your team for success becomes really important. And the social distance becomes a factor. People can start to feel isolated, not included, trust levels can take a dive. So it's really important that we think about how we run these meetings in the most effective way. And remember that virtual meetings really should be around inspiring positive action. So what are the sort of things that we can do in terms of top tips? What I'm going to do is think about before the meeting, during the meeting, and then after the meeting. So I think before the meeting, is it really necessary? Can I use information through instant messaging or Slack or Teams? Never ever have back-to-back meetings. You've got time to actually plan these in. They don't have to be an hour long or 2 hours long or a whole day. Make sure you have gaps between it to be able to reflect on what's been said, but also then to prepare for the next meeting. Set your environment right. Make sure that you think about what is behind you. Perhaps think about having light on your face. Makes it easier for people to actually read your face. Make sure there's no distractions. If you have a window behind you, then your face becomes really dark. So think about how you can position your technology and your computer and your camera. Think about the software, make sure you take some lessons around learning how to use the software. Make sure you have an environment if you can get a separate room at home, that's great. Make sure that people in the household know that you're on a call. Get a light or a sticker on the door that says that you're in a meeting so people know. Get some drinks and water and refreshment. Make sure if you're in meetings for a long time, make sure you're not sat down for too long. There's nothing wrong with actually standing up and moving back from the camera and stretching. And actually, if you can, you put the camera higher up so you can actually conduct the meeting stood up, get a little more energy and more focus there. Make sure you got obviously things like notepads and pens that you can record notes, or make sure you know how to use a chat function or ask questions on the technology. Make sure that your PC, mic and headset are working okay. It's a good idea to use a scheduling tool to make the appointments, because that will automatically send reminders to people. And a good tip, and I think a really good tip, is to make a list or print out a list of all the people that are on the call so you can involve them and use what we call spin casting to make sure that you involve people on a regular basis. During the meeting, I think it's a good idea, good protocol to get on call 5 to 10 minutes early so that you're ready. Make sure that everyone knows what the purpose of the meeting is. Connect participants and use their names often, so use the list that you have. Ensure that you include everyone's hopes and fears for the meeting. Set some ground rules for the meeting. At least every 15 minutes during the meeting, just do a quick round robin and call out people. And what I tend to do is have a list of names with 3 columns. And as we go through, I'll use that list of names in a different order, just to check in and make sure everyone's on board and their thoughts and ideas of what's going on. Chunk the meeting down. It's okay to have a break. So perhaps discuss a topic, go for a physical break, go for a walk, come back and re-engage. It doesn't have to be constantly on all the time where we're all sat in front of our computers. Use the appropriate interactive tools to manage the tasks. Stay present in the moment. It's a good tip to actually look into your camera, move further back from the screen a little bit so you can actually see all the people in your periphery, but you're actually looking into camera to actually get eye-to-eye contact. Balance the conversation with statements and questions to get people involved. And summarize throughout the meeting. Make sure that you understand that people are on board and they're actually having interaction, conversation with you, particularly at the end, to ensure everyone's clear about what the next steps are and their actions. And then after the meeting, it's really important to immediately send out the meeting notes, communicate to all stakeholders, check in with individuals as appropriate, and make sure you follow up on all the actions that were agreed. So there you have it, my top tips for running virtual meetings. I know we've gone through that very quickly, but there is a guide you can download. Have a look at the guide, have a read through, and start to weave in some of these habits and ways of working into your virtual meetings. And I'm sure you'll make sure that your meetings rock.